Welcome to What Lies Ahead. I'm your host, Chris Raffini, lead singer of the Long Island band Overthrow. On my podcast, I explore everything related to the hardcore scene through the eyes of artists, promoters, and record labels. As always, please like and subscribe on all social media platforms. I'm joined today by Sarah Kuretzky Rossington, the host of the Hardcore Therapist podcast. Her platform blends discussion of the hardcore music scene and the crucial conversations around mental health and personal growth. Through her podcast, she explores the intersections of these topics, offering unique insights of each subject matter while discussing the importance of our emotional well-being and personal journeys. Today, we'll talk about her podcast, musical history, and what's in store for the future. Sarah, thanks for coming on. How's it going?
Hey, Chris, it's so good to see you.
Yeah, it's great to see you again. I've been on a lot of podcasts. They've all been awesome, and yours was one of the most fun I've ever had. Honestly, it
Oh,
was a
thank
cool
you.
blend. All the others have been amazing too, but this one was really fun. I was able to obviously speak a little bit about what I do with my career, but also blend in the music, how I described in the middle, in the introduction that I gave.
Yeah.
And I was telling you this. I've also told you this when we've been DMing and stuff, but you and Jay from the TNF podcast, I really credit for helping me get this off the ground because I was like so concerned about getting this thing going with the technology. Finally, I hit you up. You're like, yeah, remember this is what I did when we were on. I'm like, okay, I think I could do this, and off I
Yeah,
am. So off I was. So I appreciate
of
your help.
course. I was all like, we used Zoom during the pandemic. Remember
I'm like,
that?
that's right. So I'm like, I could do Zoom and I could utilize Buzzsprout and all that stuff.
Yeah,
So, no, but I really appreciate that,
of
and it's
course.
awesome to have you on because when we were talking for your podcast, it was cool hearing your story a little bit too with stuff. So
Thank you.
so we'll talk about that today, and then we'll also talk a little bit obviously about your podcast, which is killing it. So I guess let's start with when did you first get into music, and then that led to hardcore and heavy music and
Yeah,
if you remember your first show. So let's go from there.
I totally. So I was into music. I remember really liking music when I was young, like really young. Like I talk about this on my podcast sometimes. Like my mom took me to see like Three Dog Night, which is hilarious when I was like 3 years old and, would take me to see concerts like that. But I remember being in third grade and everyone like loved like Rick Springfield and that. And I had my whole room was plastered of posters of the Stray Cats.
Mhm.
So like it was always a little bit different than I feel like my friend group. Like they were always like into like Michael Jackson and Prince, and I was like, you too, or like, something a little bit different. And there was a boy in seventh grade, I think it was seventh grade, it might have been sixth grade. His name is Chris Riley. I still see him once in a while. And he made me a mixtape. There was this radio show in the Detroit area that was like a local community college that did it. Like you would listen to the show and then you would tape a song and like that whole thing in
Mhm.
the 80s. Yeah, and he made me a mixtape and I remember the first song that I heard was Bitchin' Camaro, which I always laugh so like and I was like, "Oh my God, I love this." And then like Dead Kennedys and then there was just so much stuff on there that I was like, I need to know more. And in seventh grade, the first album I ever bought was Loose Nut by Black Flag. And I sort of just started getting into it. I mean, in seventh grade, I went and saw U2. Um, and then I started seeing shows. That was like 85. I'm like super old. So it was
Okay.
85. I know that I saw Youth of Today in 88. But I started seeing shows probably 86, 87, like at smaller clubs. So like I was like sick of it all and Agnostic Front. Like
Mm.
I felt like I saw them like every freaking weekend. Like they would
Mhm.
just come all the time. And like we had really cool places in Detroit. So in the 80s, it was mostly seeing shows at Blondie's or maybe like people's houses sometimes and stuff like that. And then as time went on, like early 90s, when I got into college, there was a place in Detroit called The Grounds, which a lot of people might know about in the hardcore scene, or if you've been in bands, like going to the grounds and seeing shows. And my very dear friend, who I'm still friends with to this day, Eric Zimbowitz, people call him Eric Z. He used to put shows on there, and yeah, I just kind of got into it. I thank him for teaching me about straight edge because I was definitely drinking and stuff when I was
Mhm.
in high school at first. And yeah, and I became straight edge and that's kind of been my thing ever since. So Yeah, I mean, I've seen a lot of really cool bands. I've been very, very lucky. But I think probably the first show I went to was a GBH, actually. It's like a
Wow.
show. So
Yeah, you just so think of like all the bands that you named and what you believe your first show was with GBH, which probably was. You did say that to me when we were
yeah,
talking. I
I'm
remember
pretty
for
sure that
yours.
was the first show.
Yeah, so it's just an amazing bands and an amazing time that was. That's awesome. So it led you obviously to hardcore. You
Yeah.
started going to shows. You obviously had a different background of music that you listened to as well, like we all had, like all
Oh,
started with.
totally.
Right. Yeah. But so how did that lead into some in terms of like what you're doing now? How did it slowly lead into your terms of school and the work that you're doing? And
Yeah.
mental health, and then you kind of merged everything really well.
Yeah.
So
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah.
yeah.
So I took kind of a strange, long way to get there, I'll be honest with you.
Mhm.
So I actually I got my bachelor's of fine arts in photography, and I was like taking pictures at shows. I contributed to some fanzines and stuff like that. I thought I was going to be a photographer. I really did. I thought that was going to be my thing, but it was kind of a bad time to be in photography because it was like right before digital came out.
Mm.
Like I learned how to like everyone's like when I tell people now, like, oh yeah, I used to like develop color film. And like I would like the chemistry of that is like crazy.
Yeah.
So I did that. And then after my BFA, I went to the School of the Art Institute of Chicago and did an MA in art and then got a certification in art education. And I was an art teacher in Chicago for a number of years. And I always was really interested. I worked with an art therapist. We taught a class together, and I really got interested in the idea of how could you use therapy in this way. Um, but then, I mean, I still like, then I was like, okay, I'm going to get my PhD in art education. So I kept on like just going to school and doing different things. And I taught university and I taught high school. I just kind of did a little bit of everything. I was a personal trainer for a while. Like I really have done, I've kind of done everything. And my high school boyfriend, who I dated on and off from 16 to 23, um, he was a heroin addict.
Mm.
And when I got divorced from my first husband, we got back together and he told me he was clean, but he wasn't. And I mean, he was into hardcore, like he was one of the people who started Initial Records. So, you
Mhm.
know, so we like had this really this common bond, and like all of our friends, like we knew all the same people, and it was this thing, and it wrecked my life. Like he was wrecking my life, and I was trying to keep my shit together, and I was still teaching, and I was trying to like keep a roof over my kid's head and that whole thing, and I just kept on lying to everyone about what was going on. And yeah, I mean, it was just like soul sucking. And we just went through this like terrible traumatic experience. Him and I he had a suicide attempt. He yeah, it was just really messed up. And then I had to get a PPO against him. He almost burnt my house down. It was like a lot of
A
that.
lot.
And then he ended up dying of a heroin overdose. And I always felt responsible in some way. And I know it's not my responsibility. So I'm going to be very clear about that with everyone. I know it's not, but I felt somewhat responsible. And I thought to myself at the time, and I was teaching art, that if there was a counselor, if there was someone at
Mm.
school that could have been a person that his name was Dennis, that Dennis could have talked to, I wanted to be that person because I didn't want any more kids to suffer in the way that he suffered. And so, like a wild woman, went and got my third master's degree in my 40s and got a school counseling and a mental health. And I
Yeah.
really thought I was going to do substance use stuff and I thought I was going to do things with kids. And I found that old behaviors of mine, my enabling behaviors, were not suited to do that. I do work with people with substance use disorder. I do education with substance use disorder, but I have to be very careful to not get too emotionally involved.
Mhm.
So I ended up working, and now I'm working more with like couples and families and things like that.
Could I
And
apologize? Did that happen organically, or that's what you wanted?
no, it happened organically. So like when
Mhm.
I was in school, I was like substance use. Like I was like lasered in substance use disorder was what I was going to
Right.
do.
You want to
And
help people with it. Right.
yes, and
Mhm.
with school counseling. And I'm like, I'm going to help kids to focus on that and really be cool. Like straight, like I like love outspoken. So straight edge isn't cool anymore. So what? Right. Like I was gonna help kids in that way. And I started working with some kids with substance use stuff, and I really felt all my old patterns come up and
Mhm.
realized that this wasn't for me. Like this isn't my journey. I really wanted to help more people like me who never used substances in that way, but like enabled people and were super codependent and all of that. And that has seemed to been the area that I really have been more successful in. And then within these relationships with people with co-parenting and couples and stuff like that. Yeah. So organically that has kind of happened.
Yeah. So it's like amazing what you said there. A couple things I want to say, but the one thing that you just said there, like you realize how that wasn't for you. While do you remember how old were you at this point in time?
Oh my God, I was like in my 40s.
Right. So
It's like 5 minutes ago.
yeah, right. Yes. And it was. And I think that's what's, if you hear that's so amazing that you're in your career path. And a lot of times, not all the time, people that they're in their 40s, they feel that, okay, this is where I'm at and I'll just get there till I retire. That okay, it's not even an epiphany, but you felt like, again, this organically led you to where you are. I think that's amazing in terms of then you went and
Thank
got
you.
another master's. I think that's awesome. And it's just everything that you're describing here from all the adversity that you went through. You just always sound like you're a helper. You're someone who likes helping people,
I do.
even helping me, even as little as it was. Get my ass off the off the chair to get this podcast moving, but help me moving with it. Like you've always been someone who's helping. So where did that start with your line of work and your obviously love of this music scene and how you merged bringing in the hardcore therapist as a podcast?
Yeah. So I do want to say it also being in the hardcore scene, I do want to say it also allowed me to pivot a lot in my life and
Mhm.
make huge changes because most people become a teacher, right? And they stay in education. We know this. And I got into a really sought after district in Michigan, like the best district pretty much you can be in the state of
Yeah.
Michigan. And I realized I needed to go work for myself. So I wanted to say that too, because that's another really important piece. And I think that hardcore completely did that for me. Like I wanted to do that. But I have to say how the hardcore therapist came about was Raghunath Ray Capo does a podcast called Wisdom of the Sages. And he used to be like, oh, it's Sarah Kuretzky, the hardcore therapist. And he would like kind of tease me and joke about that. It was Zoom. And so like you could be on the live audience while they did the podcast.
Okay.
And so I would go on every morning and be like, oh, it's the hardcore therapist. And he would say it over and over again. And it really kind of clicked for me that I don't think I'm going to be a therapist like other people are therapists. That's not who I am. I need to be, I feel like people totally overuse the word authentic, but I'm going to say it anyways. So like I needed to be
What
like
goes with what you're describing here? So
right.
yeah.
Like I needed to be authentic to who I was and what I believe in and where I think I could be of service to people within the scene because I mean, I think it has changed a lot, but like in the 80s and 90s, I don't think people were willing to talk about mental health. And I think there's a lot of people like and I know I've talked about this on my own podcast is like kind of like what fucked you up to get you here, like I got that from Norm Brennan, but like there is something if you're not a tourist in the hardcore scene, there's something that is actually keeping you there. And it could be that this has become your family. These are your people. And why would I want to serve my people? Right?
Mhm.
Why would I want to serve my family rather than just focusing on, okay, I know I can make a ton of money doing couples therapy and just work with couples and make them pay cash, and it's huge. And I'm not doing anything where I'm doing any kind of outreach or I'm not doing any service. First of all, I'd be super bored just doing that. This gave me that, like hardcore gave me that, the reason why to do that piece. Like, I need to be of service. I need to do outreach. I need to let people know that there's someone there that cares about them and wants them to do well and wants them to be successful. And that's kind of how it came about. I don't know if
Wow.
that answered it.
Wow. What was your first episode?
My first episode where I interviewed anyone
Yeah.
was Premananda. So Porcel. So
That's
yeah.
great. What a great first episode. Yeah.
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 I will say, being an old person, I am a very lucky and blessed person of someone who has never been in a band, but I have the ability to have met some of the most amazing people and have, developed friendships or mentorships or something like that from these amazing musicians. And I feel completely blessed because
Yeah. I mean, you've obviously, you've been going to shows for a long time. You get to meet people, and obviously from 85, like you said, or give or take with a date,
yeah,
naturally you're going to be meeting people, and you're going to, and it helps that introduction in terms of doing it. Plus the content and the subject of how you do it and how you blend the two is super cool and unique.
thank
So
you.
it makes it interesting to do that. So it's like some of the things was even like with Mark from Shutdown. He was a friend of mine. I had him on here. He was on yours.
Yeah.
We were talking, and he's like, that was his favorite podcast he's ever been on. So
Oh,
just
thanks,
because
Mark.
the level of how, it's just such a cool flow of
Well,
conversation,
thank you.
and how you feel comfortable having those discussions. So you have a lot of influential members of the hardcore scene on. You also have a lot of people that vary with mental health. How do you go about that? Getting guests like so. Actually, take a step back. How
Yeah.
do you go about breaking it up? Do you be like, okay, I have 4 episodes coming out this month. I'll go hardcore one week, then maybe this week I'll have someone who's more in the mental health realm, or you don't really look at it that way, or you just say, okay, I have people, and then you kind of try to put them out based on how you have it recorded.
So I I do big asks. So
Mhm.
every week I do a big ask. I ask someone even if I don't know them, I will ask them to be on my show. And it could be an author, it could be um I asked this woman and she said, "Yeah, we haven't figured out a date yet, but she makes her name's Cindy, she makes these crazy guitars."
Mhm.
You know what I mean? Like, I just want interesting people. I think people's stories are so important, and I don't think people have a platform to tell their story. Like, I think just telling your story is healing in itself. And so I kind of go about doing it, and like I'm doing it a little different right now. Like last year I was like trying to make sure I got at least 12 women in hardcore. Like, that was one of my things. So like that was
Yeah.
like one of the ideas that I got. Then this year, I'm partnering with New Age Records. So we're
Cool.
doing, yeah, it's amazing. I love Mike. So we're doing some work together. So like, I want to make sure I'm hitting some more New Age bands. I also want to make sure that Detroit is getting represented. So I kind of focus on like all those different things,
It's cool.
like a male female ratio, a little bit of Detroit in there because I think that, it's cool and like good friends. Also, like these big asks of people, like Walter was on, you know, in March, and like for
That was a
me,
good one. Yeah.
yeah, it was like two Labrador retrievers, like like felt like we were like, but like doing those big asks. I'm not afraid if someone says no to me, like I did. I had someone say no to me, like they said, no, like podcasts aren't my thing, so I'm not going to do it. And it was kind of a big person. And I was like, that's totally rad. And, but I at least got to put myself out there. And I think that's kind of what I do. I just,
Yeah, no, that's great. And you clearly do that because you have so many different people on. You
yeah,
had people on that are on Mount Rushmore of hardcore. You've had people Mount Rushmore of authors of mental health and all that stuff, which is beneficial. You ever felt like when you've had so many, you don't have to name names here, but I'm just asking if there's ever a time when you feel, okay, this conversation isn't flowing the way I want it to while you're in the middle of it. Um, you have also a background, you have a clinical background, you have a school counselor
right.
background, you have a teaching. So that helps a lot with it. And you naturally like to engage and speak with people. So that always is helpful. But with all that being said, have you ever had that? And obviously we won't say with who or anybody like that. What do you do to try to bring out some conversation within a podcast, or what do you do prior to help with that?
I
If you
had
feel.
one of my first podcasts, I had that happen, and I didn't end up putting the podcast out.
Okay.
I'll be honest, it was painful. The person was not nice to me. I would ask questions and they would, I don't want to say if it's male or female, they would not answer. It was rough. And I was really upset because I was like, this was really important to me. I really put my heart and soul into this. And I talked to a friend of mine, who was a professional skateboarder. He was on like one of my first episodes. His name's Gerald Valley. And he was like, you don't have to put it out if you don't want to. I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to hold on to it. So I held on to it for like a year and then I just finally deleted it. And
Yeah.
that was super cathartic for me
Yeah,
because
probably
the person
tremendous
like,
weight off your shoulder. Not weight on
yeah.
your shoulder. Right. Yeah.
And it's okay. Like, it's okay not to connect with everybody. And it's okay if this person didn't want to do it or if it wasn't the right time. I wish they would have just said no. Because like it was like a whole thing. Like we did the podcast. First of all, they asked to do the podcast. They like followed me. They did the podcast. Immediately after, unfollowed me. Like it was like a weird situation.
That's interesting.
Yeah. So I mean, that was the only person that has ever happened to. I have had like I've had people where it's been like a little bit more difficult to get the conversation started. And I mean, I do think being a teacher has been really helpful to get people engaged in a conversation. And I tell people like right before we start, and I don't know if you remember, like if we make mistakes, we make mistakes. It's cool.
Yeah.
Like it's not a big deal. Like this is just a conversation. And the lucky thing I've had is like people who will say, John Coyle said to me, he's like, I totally forgot we were doing a podcast. He's like, I thought we were just talking. Like I'm like, that's exactly what I want.
Yeah. And that, like I described with marketing when I was talking to you, that's really, and even me, like me as well. Like that's
Thank
what it
you.
feels like. It feels like a very natural conversation,
Thank you.
which is great. And you obviously something like you thoroughly enjoy. How many episodes? This is going to be coming out in mid-May. So how many episodes do you have out now? You
So
do
I
half
just,
episodes too, which is cool.
yeah, I do
So
half episodes. So I just finished my mid-May one, and that was 89, but I do
wow.
0.5s too. And then I have a few special episodes. Like in April, I did a collab with a pit therapy podcast.
Hmm.
And it was hilarious and so fun. So that will go out as a special one. So I don't know, 250? I have no
Wow.
idea. So yeah, a lot.
Wow.
I'm a yapper. My
And
daughter
you,
tells me all the time.
but but you enjoy again the conversation with it, and you like talking music, but then also the helping aspect of it. And what I liked about it too was when we were talking, I was able, like I said, I think before, to talk about my job with helping people, but also the career readiness piece. And that's one of the things with this podcast, and it's great for you to hear people with your career path, but also how you merge this into what you do with your podcast.
Yeah.
It's being people, if someone's listening to this, oh, maybe I want to start a podcast, or maybe that, oh, I'm going to change a career later on in life, or someone's younger here. And it just helps maybe spark that down the road, and hearing how how the guests and how you go about it.
Thank you. Yeah,
Yeah.
100%. I think like for me, starting a new career was not scary. Like it's just like this is what I do. I'm kind of scrappy. I can take care of shit and I will figure it out. And I'm lucky like that. Like I feel very lucky and blessed that I am able to do that pretty easily. And I'm a workhorse. Like I hate saying it like that, but I will like literally work my ass off on everything I do and put all my all in it. So, you said I do those 0.5 episodes. Those 0.5 episodes are questions that people ask. I research the question, right? Like I go into old things. I come up with like a script because I don't do anything scripted, just to organize my
Yeah.
thoughts. So I kind of keep it like that. And then I spend like 15 minutes just answering that question so that they
Mhm.
can, because I think that's my service to the hardcore community too.
Yeah.
It's like if you can't afford therapy, or you don't have a therapist, or you're afraid to ask about it, or you want to remain anonymous, here's a platform that you can ask it on.
Yeah, and that's great, and it's a great thing, and they're nice episodes too to listen to, and you put out a
Sure.
bunch of them, so it's great to have. So how has the podcast helped I mean, your job is related to it, but in an own way, it's like, even for me, this is just, I enjoy talking music and all these things. But how has the podcast helped with your mental health?
Thank you. That's a great question.
Mm.
I was just telling someone, like, I don't have a lot of free time, right? So like we scheduled this based on my work schedule, right? So like I just finished with my last client at 6 o'clock. So, and it's 6:30.
Mm.
So I find doing podcasts to be kind of it's kind of like my favorite thing to do. So
Mm.
like besides working out, it's like the thing that gets me kind of going. I love connecting with people. I mean, I really do. Like I get
Mm.
so happy to connect with people and make new friends and, have new relationships that I didn't have before. And I also really like learning. So if someone asks me a question that I know nothing about, then I'm like a dork and I'm sitting here researching a bunch of stuff and I'm writing stuff up and then I present. And it's helped me because it's made me feel more confident.
Mm.
And it's also helped me not feel so isolated about some things. Because sometimes I have questions that people ask me myself and I don't necessarily know how to answer it. And and so it gives me that piece too. I also think I'm very goal oriented. So I
Mm.
think that also really helps with my mental health is I have a goal every week that I'm going to put out at least 2 podcasts.
Yeah.
Like I'm prolific. I don't care that I was in Mexico in March for a week. There are still 2 podcasts coming out,
Yeah.
right? Like I make a commitment to myself. And to me, that is an important part of my mental health. It would make me anxious not to do it. So yeah, I don't know if I kind of felt like that went hard in a whole different direction, but that's fine.
No, but that's great. And you actually mentioned, you said there were guests, I think, that said, I think if you said this, right, that they, or you're asking questions and something, guests make you do that to you in terms of where it makes you think with certain things. Do you ever recall any of those questions that happened? I don't know if I'm wording it correctly to you, but you
Yeah,
mentioned
no,
it
I hear
before.
you're saying. So I'm going to reframe what you said to make sure I understand it.
Yeah, and I hope I said it right. You could, yeah. It could
So
be,
essentially,
yeah,
because I do ask people if they have any
yeah.
questions for me. So have I had any questions that have really stood out to me that I felt that were helpful for me?
There we go. Thank
Um,
you. And much
yeah,
more eloquent than I did. Yes.
no, it's all
Yes.
good. I reframe all day long. That's what
You
I do.
did.
So, yeah, you know, I felt a lot of shame talking about like the whole Dennis situation. And like that my ex-boyfriend, the one that died of a heroin overdose, it's a really hard thing to be like a straight edge kid, and like to really tell that story and tell it from my perspective. And people have asked me questions about that. So I just had Scott Krause on recently, and we put on a show with Earth Crisis in Detroit I think it was in 2016. And I mean, Dennis kind of went hard with me. I mean, sorry, not Dennis. Scott went hard with me on asking me what happened to Dennis. And there is a Dennis in Earth Crisis, everyone. I didn't mean to make that error. But and I'm glad I was grateful for it because it made me do a lot of self-reflection. And so that was a really helpful one. Norm Norm Brannon has asked me some questions that I thought were really poignant and really good. And he went right back to me and was like, "Well, I fucked you up to got you into hardcore." And to be able to again talk that piece out and kind of explain a little bit more was helpful for me and helpful for my own mental health and my story. Because
Yeah.
again, my story is important too, and I'm not gonna discount it and just say everyone else's story is important. Yeah,
Yeah,
so
no, you're totally right though. And I think that's part of what you do in your podcast that helps with making people comfortable is that you're asking questions, but you're also sharing about you. And
yeah.
when you're speaking or talking to anybody with that, specifically, we'll talk your podcast, people feel comfortable and that, but that's the point of your podcast. You're not just asking questions. It's about the music, but it's more about the person within the music. So I think when you share those things, especially something as heavy in the adversity that you dealt with and how you grew and where you came from today based on all that stuff, absolutely helps with all those things for
No,
sure.
totally.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
I also want to just say, because I know I've said it before, but I want to say this again because I think it's really important. If what happened with Dennis didn't happen, I don't know if I would have gotten back into Krishna consciousness, and I would have definitely not met my husband. So it all happened for the betterment of my life. Like, I hate to say that his tragedy created betterment for me, but I could have really stayed in this really deep, dark hole.
Of course.
And thank God that it went a completely different direction.
Yeah. Yeah. And now it's everything for you in terms of
Yeah.
what you do, right?
Yeah.
So how do we kind of talked about this, but I guess I'll kind of put it into a question. How are you, they're similar in a way, but how are you merging with what you do with your career and your podcast? They are kind of the same thing a little bit, but
Yeah.
how do you do that? And has one helped the other, do you feel?
Yeah. So how am I merging? That's hard. I mean, it's hard for me to answer because there's so many things I want to do, right? Like, I miss doing retreats. I used to do retreats all the time. I would love to do a hardcore retreat, right?
Mm.
Like, that would be so rad. Um, I think that the podcast helps me with that, maybe getting that idea out there and putting that out there. I miss teaching a lot. And so it gives me the opportunity to do some teaching as well. I think the podcast that way. Um, I do, because I was a coach before I became a therapist too. So like I'm a certified, national certified coach. So
Mhm.
I was, it also has expanded the audience of people that I could help, because if you don't live in the state of Michigan, I can't do therapy with you, but I can do therapeutic coaching. So
Mhm.
so those are things that I am able to do. So it is kind of cool that I'm able to do that. How I'm kind of set up right now isn't like, how when you do interviews for teachers and stuff, it's like, where do you want to see yourself in 5 years, 10 years, that
Yeah.
whole bit? Like,
Yep.
I'm not where I want to be in 5 years. In 5 years, I mean, I've been on and off working on a book for a while. I want to make sure
Yeah.
my book is done. Um, I really would love to propel my podcast to be something bigger. To be honest, like, I love it and it's great and it's growing and I love that growth, but I hope that it's bigger, and I can reach more people. And I would love to do retreats, and I would love to work with the people that I want to work with. Because
Yeah.
you don't always get to work with everyone you want to work with.
No, you don't. You don't, and it's tough. And hopefully, like little by little, you get there. But
Yeah.
it's fun. When we met over the summer, I guess. I mean, I knew about your podcast, but
Yeah.
when we met over the summer, your podcast had a name, but now it's even bigger than what it was. It's almost a year later. So it's
Yeah.
amazing how it keeps growing and growing, and
No, it's cool. I
it's
was at
really super
Agnostic
cool.
Front I'm sorry, I was at Agnostic Front in March, and someone walked up to me and they're like, "Hey, you're the hardcore therapist." I was like,
Me? That's awesome.
"Oh yeah, that is me."
Yeah, yeah, that's great. Yeah, that's cool. And then it keeps growing from there. And it's nice what you talked about here a little, because I want to talk about what your future plans, because you're always, and even from knowing you, even how describing it here, you're always looking at growth and growing and not kind of remaining stagnant, whether it's your career, it's your podcast. So you actually talked about growing your podcast. I actually wanted to talk about, yeah, what
Yeah.
that means, so from there. But you said yourself, so back, you were in your 40s, you had a career
No,
shift.
yeah, I was, yeah. Now I'm in my 50s now, but yes, I was in my
Yes, yes.
40s.
And I remember you kept joking at me. You're like, you said your age a lot in that podcast. I kept doing that. But now so let's talk 8 years ago, 7 years ago, you changed your career path, give or take, right? I could be off with the timeline, but
You're totally off on the timeline, but it's
on
okay.
the timeline, but we'll keep it at that level, group. But where do you see? So there was a lot of stuff you talked about. You have a book you're working on.
Yeah.
When do you, the goal of hopefully that coming out?
I will,
And do you
yeah,
see
okay.
maybe shifting to another kind? You would talk a little, another career path along the lines of what you're doing in the future.
Yeah. So, um, okay. So I felt like that was like an awkward pause for a second. I didn't mean that. So
No,
my book, I would love to have, it's a punchy book. So punchy books are short books, they're like 150 pages or less. I would love my book to be out by the end of the year. That would be my
oh
goal.
wow! Like
I
you said,
don't
you're
know.
goal oriented. So
Yeah, I don't
knowing
know
you,
if
you're gonna have two out. You'll probably have two of them out by the
no,
end
no.
of the year.
Um, I've also pivoted with the idea of thinking about creating a book of my my answers to people's questions from the podcast and creating a book that way as well. So I have a few things going on.
That's a cool idea. Yeah.
3 little books started. So I would love to have one out by the end of the year, if not the beginning of 2026. My husband lives in Oregon.
Yes. Maybe we're talking about
So
that.
we
Yeah.
got to kind of figure that out a little bit
Mm.
more. By the summer, I will be 100% virtual, which I am not right now. What do I want it to look like? I feel like I have something to say. I'm like, will anyone from the place where I am a 1099 employee hear this? I don't know. What I would like to do, so I'm just going to say it anyway. What I would like to do is I would like to actually have the hardcore therapist kind of company where it's mine, and I actually employ people all over the country that are other people in hardcore and pay them a much fairer wage than most private practices pay.
Mm.
And but they have to be fully licensed because I can't deal with license stuff.
Yeah.
Um, and then I would love for other people to be able to go to their local festivals. So I'm not trying to figure out how to get to festivals and do education as well. So I would like to grow that whole part. I would like to figure out how to create it as a full nonprofit and on one end of it. So like I have all these little umbrella things I want to do. And I also really want to have like a wellness section of the hardcore therapist where I am doing retreats, where I am doing some more of the things that I love to do. Like one of the things I really like to do that I don't get to do enough of is I have a background in functional medicine, mental health. And so I really want to work with perimenopausal and menopausal women on what is going on with our bodies because it's a humongous change that no one really knows how to talk about.
Mm.
So like I would like to do that too. So I would like that's my 5-year plan. I just kind of said it. So
Wow, that's awesome. That's awesome. And obviously, could be little shifts and changes here and there,
yeah.
like anything. But the fact that you keep doing that and doing that, that's why you keep build and build and build. And that's part of what you were saying in terms of growth of of the podcast, what you want to do.
Yes, yeah,
Yeah,
totally. Sorry. I like
yeah.
some someone texted me and it went crazy. So sorry.
All good, all good. No, but
Um,
it sounds exciting. One
yeah,
question with the podcast, and I apologize, and we
no, no,
may
it's okay.
how far out do you go when you record guests? You know, because it's someone who is wants to. Because I asked you this question.
Yeah.
You're like, so I'm like, all right, you record. How long in advance do you put it out and all that kind of stuff? So, but how do you typically
Usually
do
around 6 weeks.
that? Yeah,
And the reason why I do that, and it's not because I'm editing, because we know that I am not an editing human.
me neither. Yeah,
It is because I have to travel to Oregon to see my husband. And I try not to actually record when I'm there because I like to be in the space that I'm in here.
yep.
And also I just am like with like summer schedules and stuff with like touring and things like that. I get worried that I'm not all of a sudden I'm not going to have enough podcasts, so I'd like to keep them in the bank.
Yeah.
So that's kind of I go about it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that makes sense. Yeah, because if you front load everything, then I always have that same worry almost. It's like, oh no. Fortunately, I have everything set to what, another month from now when we come out, when this comes out. But that's my concern. It's like, oh no, I might run out of some. I just feel like if you just don't have it. And I actually remember you telling me that when I first was getting this going.
Yeah, and I mean, and so people have asked me to repeat, like, I've had guests ask me, like, "Hey, can I be on your podcast again? I've done this," or "Hey," and I'm like, I don't know if I want to repeat yet.
Mm.
I don't know if I will at some point, but I really want to spend some time not repeating as
Mhm.
much as I possibly can. Um, and if I do repeat, it might just be a special episode. It might not be like my normal one. So yeah, that's what I try to do is 6 weeks out or so. Also, yeah, just depending on that. So yeah, I just recorded, so we'll come out the week after this one. So I
Mhm.
just recorded Rob from Rust, which
Uh,
is a new age band.
mhm.
Great band. Everyone should check it out.
Mhm.
And it's coming out the week after. So I think I'm up, I think I'm like, you know, through May.
Right, you're on your 6th week prior because this is early
Yeah,
April. You and I right now are speaking in early April, and when you come out, you'll be mid May. But right
right.
to your point, you're in your see. So I'm kind of in the 6 week kind of range
Yeah,
too with how we do it.
for sure.
So this is I like this, and we were there was a lot you talked about. We talked about mental health with you in the beginning, but music and how it built and where you are today in your career. So this was a cool thing that you and I talked about that I liked, and I like kind of ending off with this before we get into a bunch of questions I ask, and you give me the first thing that comes to mind. You can go
Okay.
back a little bit, and you have children in this area, in this age group too. But advice to yourself as a teenager, like what would you go back and tell Sarah? With your experience, with your life experiences that you've had now.
Um, that you're stronger than you thought you were, and
Hmm.
that everyone doesn't have to like you. It's okay.
Hmm.
And
It's a good,
taking care of yourself first before other people is really important.
yeah, yeah, for sure. And when you're a kid or younger at that point in time, all of those three examples you gave, you're not thinking that, and even maybe spiraling a little bit with some of the things in certain case with some people would do that. So that's,
Yeah.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Great advice with that. So let's end off. I have a bunch of questions. First thing that comes to mind, but you could absolutely elaborate on anything some of them you may not have to, but if there's anything, if you want to elaborate, just go. So favorite show that you went to over your long career of going to, and it doesn't have to be hardcore.
No, my favorite show I ever went to was The Grounds. I think it was 1992, was Shelter in 108.
Mhm.
It was so good. Everyone went for Shelter, and I was like so enthralled with 108. Like it my soul just
Yeah.
opened up. It was
Mhm.
like a whole thing. And also they did Kirtan before, which I had never seen. Maybe it was 91, which I had never seen before. And it drew me in. Like I just sat down with them and did Kirtan and was like, I want more of this.
Right.
So
Cool.
yeah.
So you've had a lot of great guests. Favorite guest you've had?
Besides my husband,
Mhm. That's three.
Don, if you're listening, always. Um, I've had a lot of really great guests. It's hard to say my favorite. I will say the one I was most excited about was probably Walter. I am like a big Walter nerd fan. Like everyone will make fun of me because like I am like the probably a super fan. I don't think I don't think there's anything he's done that I don't like. So I was super excited and it was a very fun interview. Um, I like to always do my most surprising interviews, like ones that were just like, this really made me think. Um, Chaka Malik, I love Chaka, like he's
Mhm.
such a good guy. I loved our conversation. Like that's how we talk in real life. So I really loved, and it really made me think of how I am as a human during our conversation. So I really appreciated that. And
Cool.
he's so cool. So
Yeah.
people should listen to that one.
Yeah. Cool. All right. So a two-part here.
Yeah.
A guest that you would like to have. Let's start with music. Let's do music first.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hardcore. Yeah.
Um, I would love to have Popeye on.
Hmm.
I messaged him, I haven't heard. He's like one of those people. I'd also really like to have he would be my one. He would be the one that I'd want the most. Is probably Popeye.
Uh,
Um, yeah. And then go ahead and say
oh,
I
yeah.
kept
Another one. No,
like
I
thinking,
apologize.
I'm like also like anyone in Louisville hardcore besides Duncan. I love Duncan. I would love anyone from Louisville if you're listening.
Cool. Now, what about someone within mental health or an author? Because I know you've had a lot of different. You separate.
Yeah. My authors have all had some tie to hardcore. So, if I could have Tripurari Swami,
Hmm.
he is my guru, but like he is like a prolific writer. He writes so beautifully and speaks so beautifully. Um, I would say him, Tripurari Swami.
Cool. Your top three albums of all time.
Did I do this to you? And I said, if you say this to me ever, I will be sweating because I always
With
change.
one of the questions you did. Yes, you did.
Yeah.
So
Um,
I created this for you. No, I always ask this one.
no,
So,
no, I know
but
you
yeah.
did.
Because it'll change. You're going to get off. Like I say this to everybody that's on here. You're going to get off. You're like, what did I say that one for?
Right. No, I know. I think I was thinking about this. The Burn 7-inch, the first thing that came out was probably my favorite thing I've ever heard in my life. I think Break Down the Walls. I'm gonna be honest, I just love that. Are we just doing hardcore? I forgot, I'm sorry.
Do whatever. You can even go back to Three Dog Night if you want.
Al Green. I'm trying to remember the name of the album. I just think it's named after him. Anything Al Green has ever done really makes me a happy human.
Awesome. Favorite venue to see a show?
I really loved Brooklyn Bazaar.
Oh, yeah.
I really love that venue. In Detroit, Blondie's. Blondie's, which you will never. And actually also I loved the Grounds, but yeah, there's I don't know if there's a favorite, but Brooklyn Bazaar was really great to see. I saw a lot of cool shows there. So
awesome. Now I don't know a venue you probably missed ever, but a venue that closed that you never had the opportunity to go to. And maybe pushing out of Detroit a little bit to help you a little bit because it's like you've been going to shows a long time, so you probably go,
yeah.
Yeah.
No, I haven't been to a show that I plan on going to a show, but I'm really excited is Gilman. I've never been to Gilman.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I would love to go to a show there.
And you are going, you said?
Hopefully, if it works out. I think Earth Crisis, Judge, Integrity.
Oh, those shows. That one looks great.
Yeah.
Your favorite podcast to listen to? We could do music, and then there's mental health. So we'll do a music one first.
I love Toby's. I think Toby does a really great job.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would be probably my favorite one. There's a few. Like I really like Jay Shetty. I'll listen to him sometimes. I mean, I'll listen to the Sages, right? Like that was like one of my favorites. I wish I could listen to more podcasts. So like I like to listen depending on who's on. Like Mel Robbins sometimes has really good podcasts. So like it just depends.
Yeah, I'm the same way with it. Yeah.
Like I like Dak Shepard, like his Armchair Expert podcast. Sometimes
Oh, I've heard about that one. Yeah.
Yeah. Like there's been really good ones. I mean, during the pandemic, I listened to his a lot. So
yeah, like I'll listen to a lot of different, like, there's podcasts I'll listen to. Like I listen to yours. I listen to Jay's TNF.
yeah.
I listen to a lot. There's a lot of other musical based ones. Toby's I do listen to as well. Then I like the one I remember the Mindset Mentor I told you I'll listen to sometimes in the morning. And I like Smartless because they're funny, but it just depends on the mood I'm in also.
Right. I know people are going to be like, oh my God, I can't believe you're saying this. But I think Joe Rogan has had some of the best guests on I have ever,
He does.
And so there has been Joe Rogan episodes that I've really liked. Also Rich Roll. There's been really good episodes that I really like too. So I just want to put those two out there.
Cool.
Yeah.
So a hardcore show for release or a therapy session for insight? Which one that you are speaking with someone?
For me, like what I would need? Hardcore show for release. I mean, I think both. I think you need both, right? Like I tell people all the time I wouldn't have healed if I didn't have hardcore, if I didn't have therapy, and if I didn't have Al-Anon. So I think you need all of them.
You're so right. And then as I asked you that question, I know I'm asking you the question, but it's interesting. Like there was a day at work. It was just one of those days. Nothing, everything's fine. Everything's good. But that night I was going to see Grill Biscuits at AMH. And it was just the perfect timing, right? Just to go to a show, just see friends and see some great bands. And it was just great. So that was like the release needed, and it was just a matter of, it was like actual perfect timing. So you're right. But I do agree. There's that piece. And then there's a session you could have that could also be very helpful as well. So it depends.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think that I would have healed if I didn't have all three.
It's true.
mean, for real, I needed that outlet of hardcore. I needed someone that I know that it was like I could say anything and they would still care enough about me that I could come back to a session and pay them. And
Mhm.
then Al-Anon, it just, I was able to answer a lot of questions that I think are difficult to answer. And for people who don't know what Al-Anon is, it's like for people who are, it's a 12-step program for people who've been friends, family, with people who are alcoholics or addicts. So
Yeah.
I want to put that out there.
Yeah. A band or artist that you like that may surprise people.
I don't think it would surprise anyone. But I mean, like, I have talked on the podcast before that my daughter loves country music.
Yeah, I remember you
So
saying
like we'll get down in her car. I'm her passenger princess at all times.
that.
She just likes me. She like prefers to drive. Control issues. It's all good. But so I will listen to country with her, but surprising? I don't know if that's surprising, but man, I mean I really do like love Marvin Gaye. I love Al Green.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean like that is like I grew up on Motown, so George Harrison's my favorite Beatle. Sometimes that surprises people.
He's great. He had some great solo stuff, Traveling Wilburys, all that kind of stuff. He
Yeah,
was really good. Hmm.
yeah, no, for sure.
All right, last one here. Vinyl or digital?
Oh, that's such a hard question, a painful question for me. I would say
I'm
vinyl,
not
but
laughing at your pain. I apologize. I'm more
no, no, it's
laughing at
okay. You can
yeah.
laugh at my pain.
Mhm.
In Michigan, in my area, 2013, we had this crazy flood in where I live in Berkeley, and I had all my vinyl in the basement. I had it on people, as you know, I had it on shelves. I had over 3 feet of water in my basement, so it did not matter. And it was sewage, so I couldn't keep them. So I had I
You
don't
must
even
have some amazing vinyl. I mean, really.
I had amazing vinyl that I no longer have.
Yeah, let's just keep it. I don't even want to even ask us to bring that up. Yeah. Oh, that's rough. So I
I
would
mean,
assume vinyl is your answer.
vinyl is my answer, but I have tried to replenish my but I just I can't. I mean, it was really like my collection was like 7 inch. Like that was like I
Mm,
had a ridiculous amount of 7 inches.
yeah.
So I was for a little while trying to replenish, and I started with like the whole initial catalog, and then I just couldn't do it. Like it was just like I can't, as a grown adult who has 3 children, and at the time two were in college, like I cannot do this. So
Yeah. So you stopped almost halfway there, right?
yeah, yeah.
Is it stored safely now?
Yes, they are stored safely
Okay,
now.
good. Because I know we were talking, there was a little issue you came home with, like similar, unfortunately. I just wanted to
Yes.
make sure they were stored safely.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Yes,
All
I'm
right.
good. They're good. My vinyl is fine. I
Yeah.
know now never to keep anything in my basement of value.
Yeah. No, you're right. You never know, right?
Yeah.
Unfortunately. So just to end off here, Sarah, like anything, look, we did kind of actually explain your 5-year plan, but if there's anything you want to end with, how people can reach out to you, stuff that to look
Yeah, for
forward to
sure.
for the coming year.
Yeah, I would love when people reach out to me. Like
Mhm,
I have people all the time are like, I can't believe how quickly you responded to me.
mhm.
Yeah, the hardcore therapist on Instagram is probably the best way to get a hold of me. I'm a person who believes that my email should stay on my computer and not be on my phone because I don't want to be working at all times. So, but if you want to email me, it's the hardcore therapist at Gmail. And if you want to come to my website, it is the hardcore therapist, and you can click with the connect button and connect with me.
Amazing. Awesome. And your podcast is on all streaming platforms and anyone can
All
watch that
streaming platforms.
anywhere. Sarah, thank you so much. It was like, as I thought, a
Thanks,
great
Chris.
conversation having you on here. Much appreciated. And one of the things when I started this, I was like, and I said this to the people that are on the 100% was someone I wanted to have on here, because
Oh,
the
thank you.
story's cool, the conversation's cool, and it's great for people to hear it. And you have a
Can I
great
ask you a
podcast.
question? Can we end with a question from me to you?
Yes, of course.
What is your 5-year plan? Because you've been in education for a long
A
time.
long time, yeah. So that's a great question. So my 5-year plan is there's a possibility I could if I'd like to maybe move up to principal at some point in time if I'd like to do that. If I'd like to do that. But I'm also super happy with where I'm at right now. And the biggest thing I love, and I talked to you about this, I love the career readiness piece. And we're looking at maybe using another platform in terms of helping students with that. So that excites me. So there's a lot of creativity with that in terms of working with my department. So definitely continuing to bridge the gap of what I do, and maybe personally in my career, maybe looking at another position, if the opportunity presents itself. I work with a great group of people, so it really depends. But I'm really excited to take what we have. We have a lot of plans. We have a couple of new group of counselors that are in the department that we hired, and we have a great group that works together collaboratively. So we have a lot of cool ideas coming. So I'm excited about that. So that's professionally. This
Can I ask if you were going to say music? I was going to say music.
Yeah. So with this, with the band, obviously we have a new album coming out, and then just to play as much as we can as possible. I'm going to say my age. I'm going to be 47, so it's not so easy for us to get around. I only said it once this time. So, but we're just going to just play out, have fun. My kids enjoy it. We enjoy doing it. And then with this podcast, I just want to keep it running until as long as people want to listen to it. I've had some amazing guests on, have some amazing guests coming. I love talking music. I love talking all this stuff. So that's really my goal to do that with this.
For sure. I totally agree. When are you guys playing next? Are you playing somewhere that you can talk about?
Yeah, we have stuff planned in the summer and then into the fall. Like, we hope the album will come out this summer or in the fall, and then we plan on doing that. And I definitely want to come down your way at some point in time. That'd be fun.
Yeah, we should talk about that more. Also, if people want to see me, I will definitely be at Tie Down. I have a booth with the Hardcore Therapist and New Age Records, so come check out my booth. And
that'll be about a month from now, because this will be May. This comes out, and Tie Down's
it's the
early
first
June.
weekend of June. It's the first weekend.
It's a great fest.
Yeah, it's a good one. So come check me out.
Awesome, Sarah. Thanks. Hang on, I'll just let me end off here, and then we'll chat up after I'm done.
Okay.
Thanks for listening to the What Lies Ahead podcast, available on all streaming platforms. Remember to save the What Lies Ahead podcast playlist on Spotify, featuring all bands that have been on the show. For more information on future episodes, follow my Instagram account at @WhatLiesAhead_podcast, or search What Lies Ahead podcast on Facebook. See you on the next episode.